Here's the truth why Kenya is the way it is today. Kenya's independence was supposed to be a new dawn, but hidden beneath the celebrations was a betrayal, not just a man, but of an entire vision for Kenya. While nations like South Korea, Malaysia, and Singapore rose through unity and shared growth, Kenya was trapped in inequality, corruption, and mistrust. The reason: a clash of ideologies at the very birth of the nation. Many Kenyans blame the Kenyattas, the Mois, and all that, and argue that, they stole our land and all that. But there's one thing they forget, that during that time when Kenya got independence, there was a clash between socialism and capitalism, and that is where our problems began.
My honest opinion is that the present government has reached a point of no return. It can only do for the people the little that the underground master allows it to do. Its guiding star has become personal gain. I therefore find it impossible to be part of it, and my decision is that from now on I should be free to join with Wananchi in demanding that their voice be heard.
At independence, two men stood as symbols of freedom. One, a statesman imprisoned by the British, seen as the face of the nation. The other, a fiery idealist who refused power until his comrade was freed. They promised to work together, and Kenya believed its future was safe in their hands. But beneath the surface, their visions for Kenya clashed. One believed in African socialism, land for the landless, industries for workers, and equality across tribes. His dream was a Kenya where freedom meant dignity for the poor. The other embraced capitalism, but not as South Korea, Malaysia, or Singapore did. Not for national progress, but for elites. Land meant for the people was distributed to the connected. Opportunities went to a few families. Tribe became the gatekeeper of prosperity. What began as a partnership became an ideological battlefield. Socialism versus capitalism. Equality versus elite capture. Essentially, at independence, Kenya's government was a fragile coalition of two factions. The moderates, led by Jomo Kenyatta and Tom Mboya, sought stability and ties with the West. The radicals, led by Oginga Odinga and Bildad Kagia, pushed for nationalization, equity, and pro-Eastern policies. Entirely this is the point. Capitalism versus socialism, communism, you all understand it split the world. The Western nations, the United States, UK, and others were definitely pro-capitalism. And the United States went into war with countries like Vietnam because of that. The United States even dared China because China definitely was pro-communism. So Kenya was actually caught at the crossroads. So when you look at Kenyatta, someone educated in the West, and definitely to some extent the Westerners favored him, and because of that he had to be a moderate, and in pursuit of that it led to an ideological clash that split him with the likes of Oginga. What is the point here? Kenya was not alone in this struggle. Across the seas, South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia faced the same question: what kind of capitalism? But for them, they chose inclusive capitalism. South Korea invested in education and technology. Singapore crushed corruption and gave housing to the poor. Malaysia built ethnic inclusion policies. The men behind this ideological clash in Kenya definitely were Jomo Kenyatta and Jaramogi Odinga. Once brothers in struggle, but became enemies in vision. Oginga gave up power for Kenyatta, but Kenyatta rejected his vision, stripped him of authority, and silenced his movement. The man who said no Kenyatta, no independence, became Kenyatta's fiercest critic. And that is what brought Kenya to what it is today. This is what Oburu Oginga said about the ideological clash between the Kenyattas and Odinga. Mzee Kenyatta was respected by Jaramogi, and Jaramogi regarded Mzee Kenyatta as his hero. The disagreements, not tribal or ethnic, they were genuine ideological differences. We shall remain friends forever with the Kenyatta family. That is well understood, because let's be honest here, Kenya was actually fragile, and these are two people clashing ideologically. Definitely that was not good, and that is what, according to Oginga, led to the resignation of his father. And when his father differed with the Kenyattas, it definitely became personal to some extent, as he mentions in this book. This is what Mzee Jomo Kenyatta did to Oginga. They then went to my father's house in Milimani Estate in Kisumu, where they did havoc and literally went on a rampage in a plot hatched to humiliate him. They literally swept everything from the house. They appeared in our Bondo home and collected everything from my mother's house, including cutting away the 2 tractors in the compound. They dismantled the posho mill and hauled it away. They were yet to stop, because they went to our farm in Miwani and declared out everything, including cows, sheep and goats. Our cats and dogs probably survived because they ran and disappeared into the sugar plantation. Actually meant maybe sugarcane plantation. The entire saga was calculated to wreak maximum damage to Jaramogi. There were many auctioneers in Kisumu, but they brought one from Nairobi. This ensured that everything attached was trucked to Nairobi, therefore increasing the costs of recovering them. The auctioneer, One Kimaru, could not even get trucks big enough to carry the things he had attached. In summary, I don't want to go into too much theory, history, philosophy and all that, but here is the point, ladies and gentlemen. The Kenyattas and Ogingas had an ideological clash, and this clash brought Kenya to what it is today. Okay, the Kenyattas supported capitalism, but that capitalism was centered on exclusion. However, on this other side, Oginga supported African socialism, and this African socialism was centered on this egalitarianism. Like, there's no class between person A and person B. Instead, in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of the Creator, we are universally equal. So because of that, let's work on building a nation that is centered on equity and ensuring that everyone has an opportunity to thrive. But this other side was opposed to that. So this other side that was pro-capitalism pursued self-interest, and in that they looked at it in terms of competition. They were like, okay, as much as all men are created equal, but we can always compete, and definitely when we compete, we put our interests ahead. And eventually what happened was Kenya was split to what it is today. Tribalism took over, and until today we still play tribal politics, just because of the foundation that was laid by our founding fathers. So here's the opportunity. Kenya has an opportunity to rewrite its history, and this begins when people accept the paradigm shift and pursue ideas that are centered on equity, equality, social justice and fairness. Until Kenya pursues that, then the terrible foundation that was put there will continue to haunt Kenya. This betrayal, as others call it, was not just about two men. It is said Kenya's template, betrayals rooted in ideology but twisted into tribal battles. Moi against Kibaki, Kibaki against Raila, Uhuru against Ruto. Every split repeated the same story. Ideals crushed by power struggles, progress stolen by betrayal. The Kenyatta-Oginga split was Kenya's darkest betrayal because it killed more than a friendship. It killed a dream of equality, while other nations used ideology to unite and grow. Kenya used ideology to divide and enrich. Until the nation reclaims the vision of inclusive prosperity, betrayal will remain our political tradition.